All right. I will say hello and welcome back to another episode of All About Balance. And today I am joined by King of the North, Mr. Lloyd Cooper himself. Lloyd, how you doing, my friend?
Good, mate. Thank you very much for that awesome intro. It's quite a title.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've earned it at this point, right?
I think if shit talking with Agazarm gets me the King of the North, I'll take it.
Yeah, fuck it. Let's start there. So, I mean, the AJ Agazarm thing kind of brought you to fame almost, right? Like, how was that, right? Like, is he as much of a dick as people think he is? Because I imagine it's a little bit of a persona, right?
Yeah. Like beforehand, there was nothing scripted. He not contacted me, said, right, let's talk this up. That was legitimate. Me and him going at each other, giving each other shit. It was. I think I don't know whether there was a genuine piece of like dislike in there, but we were really going for it, pushing it hard, and I thought we were doing a good job of, making it a little bit more of interesting, exciting for that particular card. It didn't seem like any of the other competitors were giving each other shit, and I think that opportunity came for me at quite a good time. I just won Densetsu all by heel hook, so it kind of like I was on the rise as this opportunity came. So I was very, very lucky, and obviously I've seen the kind of persona he's got, and he keeps himself, I guess, current and in fights just by shit talking. So that's not typically my my way of doing things. I'm quite personally respectful, I guess, but when a dickhead like that, it's too good of an opportunity, and and I think play a bit of the UK versus USA thing up, and it worked out pretty well. I think I was probably so effective at winding him up. I put a video online about, right, what I want to know is if somebody's willing to tell me which hotel room AJ's in at the Polaris Hotel. I'm going to take some battery powered shears. I'm going to cut his hair. So he didn't actually respond to this. All I got was the Polaris promoter saying AJ is not a happy person. He spoke with lawyers and he's sent us an official email to tell me to take the video down and send an apology that there's no way he's getting his hair cut. So yeah, he reacted quite badly. I think that was probably where the line was at.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously the match was whatever it was, but yeah, I don't know. I've heard lots of things about AJ Agazarm, right? Like from various competitors, whether they're American or English, and from what I've heard is all of this stuff online, all of this stuff you see, it's literally just a persona. Like him as an actual person is not like that in the slightest.
Like afterwards, I didn't see him after the match until we got back to the hotel. I was with the missus just having a beer. He walked into the hotel. He had a quick beer, and he just walked over, shook my hand, and he went, it's an American saying, but it's all shoe leather, don't you? We had a very quick beer. He complimented me on winning the Euros, and he said, thanks. We got a lot of people talking about it. So it was pretty cool. It really was pretty cool. And I think immediately as he went back stateside, we continued shit talking to each other. But look, he's obviously of a higher level than me. But if you look compared to the elite level, he's probably bang average. He's won some very big medals. Don't get me wrong. He's world champion. He's medaled ADCC. So it's wrong for me to say that when I'm nowhere near his level. But he's not a streak of gold medals and stuff like that. But he gets good fights. He gets big fights. He gets paid well, and because he's put this bit of a persona together. You know what I mean? And because at the end of the day, it is an entertainment-driven business, or at least the live, professional aspect is. So why wouldn't you want to put AJ on, who's going to talk shit with people before the fight? He's going to, create a bit of something. People want to watch it, and fundamentally, people want to watch him get his arse kicked.
Yeah, and I think there's probably a larger point there, right? Which is like social media persona versus real life persona, and we can talk about a plethora of athletes that are like this, whether it be AJ, whether it be Connor to an extent, whether it be whoever. There's tons and tons of athletes that will make something out of nothing online to generate media and the entertainment value that you speak of, right? But I don't know. I mean, it obviously works, right? Because as you say, for yourself, a professional jiu-jitsu athlete, like it's about getting paid, right? And there's not a lot of money in jiu-jitsu to get paid. So if you're there and you're able to drum up more media attention than potentially your skills are worth, right? Because as you say, you know, AJ's obviously very good, but he's not at that 1% tier where
Yeah.
he's able to win ADCC and he's able to go and, you know, win the worlds 5 times in a row and all this kind of stuff. But then again, he goes and look at his rise in MMA, right? Like it hasn't been amazing, and yet he's still getting fights. He's still got fanfare. He's still got media attention, and he's done really well to turn himself to the Diaz brothers, right? Because shit, like if you go into any sort of MMA fight with the Diaz name behind you, like people are gonna watch, you know.
Yeah, and thing is as well, it's a team where you're carrying like a little bit of added, I guess, pressure. You know, if you're fighting a guy from the Diaz team, like fuck, they're bad people. You know they're going to be legitimately trained. You know, and they're going to bring the fire, I guess. So yeah, he's doing the right things. It's he's an interesting guy, and I think he's very, very intelligent. Don't get me wrong. You know, he talks and he jokes around. He's extremely intelligent, and he works it well.
Yeah, I agree. So the reason why I got in touch with you, well, predominantly because you were on my list of people to talk to, and I just got around to it. But secondly, because what triggered was the belt promotion rant that you had on Instagram. Do you wanna give a slight overview on that, and then let's dive into that?
The funny thing with that is the amount of people that are like, dude, who are you talking about? You know,
Yeah.
which gym? And all that, it's not. I've not seen one specific promotion that, like, I think, oh, shit, that's absolute bullshit. You know what I mean? I think it's more pertinent this time of year. A lot of gyms do promotions at Christmas, right? You know, it's a nice way to finish off the year. It's been a rough year. Let's do some belts and stuff. But I see, and it was really more of a rant about there's two opposite ends of the spectrum. There's people bitching and moaning about not getting promoted, and I really can't stand that. It's like I've seen so many people over the years, but I've seen people online recently that are like, oh, I thought I should have got a belt this year. I'm like, you fucking what? Really? You think you should get a belt, and and your first reaction is to be frustrated with the outcome. Not to do with why was my skill not there? Was my attitude not there? Have I not, have I not trained hard enough? Have I not helped my colleagues out enough? And then really the reason we do jiu-jitsu is because it is difficult, because it's difficult to, translate time and effort into improvements in skill. We've all, as jiu-jitsu practitioners, we've always taken pride out of the fact we're not karate. We're not, you don't turn up for 3 months, you get a stripe, you turn up for a year, you get a belt. We aren't karate. So, which rewards, paying your checks, minimal effort improvement. That's why you end up with fat black belts and shit like that. Brazilian jiu-jitsu, is a fighting sport. Whether you do it for the martial art, the sport, whatever. And it's about, people putting time, effort, and commitment into fundamental life development. And and when people are getting this shitty attitude, and I think a lot of it's driven out of social media, right? Because people want to look like, oh fucking hell, wow, that Dave guy got his blue belt. Wow, I've seen all those medals he won at competitions, and you look at. I always love at comps, big IBJJF comps. I'll see people like with the misses with a picture like this, and I'm like, right, okay, so look at the bracket. Oh, it was a fucking default. Well done. It was one guy in a division, and he got his gold medal. Fucking great news for you. But the sheer fabrication element of, it shows how much of a weak mindset we're now allowing into jiu-jitsu, because people are now thinking that's okay. I'm going to misrepresent what actually happened, so I look like a better competitor. Then I can translate that into, I'm going to get the next belt up. And it's all just to look good and feel good, which is not the, for me anyway, not the way jiu-jitsu was founded. Jiu-jitsu was founded to be a fighting art that was effective. You hold your own, irrespective of any difficult, Helio Gracie, Carlos Gracie were small guys. They could hold their own with big motherfuckers because they worked hard and they took the beatings. So that's like one element of it is the fact that we're allowing this sucky mindset in where people think it's okay to, just they deserve something that they're not willing to work for. I like a lot of collegiate wrestling. So Tom Brands, Iowa Hawkeyes head coach, the only thing you deserve is what you earn. You know, nothing else. Not brown, you know, like I put the thing, not brown nosing your coach, being his best buddy, helping out. And maybe I could get my purple belt. You know, not misrepresenting shit on social media. All that nonsense. Default medals. No, it's turning up, working hard. It's skill development. You know, skill acquisition, helping your training partner. Be a good training partner. Compete in. You know, trying different moves, putting yourself in bad positions. All of that, rather than the immaterial stuff. But then I see the opposite end of that spectrum is some coaches are diluting that now because they see the commercial aspect of it, you know. So, you know, and again, what I put on my story, I think I busted my arse, you know. I got my black belt in 8.5 years and I was training a fucking lot, you know. Through uni years, I was doing 7 days a week, and I probably did 7 days a week, 6 or 7 years, you know, and I've started to taper off over the last few years, but I worked really, really hard. You know, they say the average is 10 years for a BJJ black belt, and I just see that coming down now, you know. Now I am seeing, and look, everybody's got a business to run, right? You know, everyone's got their own way of doing things, and I shouldn't have, you know, it's not my business, but I do see people giving, let's say, cheap belts, quick belts, easy belts. You know, I've seen guys go year to blue, year to purple, and I'm like, wow, you know, 3 years in, you're a purple belt. You know, I got my blue belt pretty quick, but then I did 3 years at blue belt then, you know. And I appreciate coaching's getting better, access to online resources, but, you know, these are people, if I'm being blunt, you know, I'm seeing people get belts that they don't deserve just because the coach wants to retain people and make money. That's it. That's the only reason, you know, and great, fair play to them, you know, they get more students and stuff like that. But another thing, again, we're diluting, we're making the art karate again because we're giving people belts that they don't deserve. And, you know, I could do nothing about that other than have a whinge and a moan online. But, you know, the one thing I want from our gym in Goole is that every guy is, you know, owns his belt. And it's typically, you know, you see, it's the legit guys who are still holding true to that. You know, it's guys I've never even heard of that are like, right, boom, we've got fucking 7 brown belts promote today. And I've never seen a single one of them compete. Never heard of them, you know, and that's not a bad thing. People, not everybody's a competitor, but the legit guys are still doing things right. But I am seeing more and more cheap belts thrown around. I just see it as diluting what we currently have. You know, I don't want people like kids in the playground, oh, you do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're going to have 10-year-old black belts soon.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously there's a ton to unpack there. I think first of all, the karate thing, like, I agree. You know, I did kickboxing for 8 years, right? And it was very much at the very start. It was very much like you turn up, you train for 3 months, and that training is.
Or if you've took that in a derogatory fashion.
No. I agree with you. Like, I agree with you because for the first, you know, I started when I was a kid, right? Like 9 or 10, something like that, right? And for the first sort of 5-6 years of training, I was stood in a line doing form-based. You know, I was basically acting, right? I was like shadow boxing essentially, and every 3 months you were put into a grading, and then you perform a certain set of dance moves, right? And then you're given a belt. Right? There was no fighting based on, you know, the skill-based acquisition was based on whether you could move your body in a certain fashion. There was no real skill to that. There was no fighting element to that. You know, it wasn't until I got to nearly black belt that you were required to spar, and bearing in mind, I'd been doing kickboxing for like 6 years and I'd never sparred before.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'd never punched somebody. I'd never taken a punch. I'd never kicked. I mean, obviously, you know, me and my sister used to batter each other, but, you know, never in that kind of setting. And it was such an incredible change. Whereas then you go to jiu-jitsu and you're sparring from day one, right? Like, you're actually seeing the techniques that you're taught from day one. And I think that's important. And I think it's important to have a sport where, or an art, I guess, where, as you say, it's hard, right? Like, it's hard. So I think I
was
agree.
thinking of a lot of analogies for this, because let's imagine you learn how to drive a car by doing theory only. You know, by, you know, sitting in a chair in your house and going, never actually driving a car. Okay, so level 1 is, okay, great, you've done all that. Let's see if you can drive a real car in the real world. Okay, but what we're effectively doing is, right, oh no, this guy now, he's a race car driver. He's never actually driven a car, but he's a race car driver, so we're going to put him in a race. This guy's a Formula 1 driver now. Without actually gaining any of that contextual experience that they're required to get. You look at a guy like Lewis Hamilton. He's driven in real events, competed all the way up, and he's built his knowledge. By progressing people, let's say, without the, in my opinion, proper development and knowledge, what we're saying is they're a race car driver, they're a Formula 1 driver, but they ain't doing nothing to deserve that, and they're going to get destroyed.
Yeah. So there's something. So the thing that I I'll bring it to a personal discussion. Like, so my missus is a white belt. Right, been a white belt for a while, 2.5 years, something like that. Now she switched gyms in between there for various reasons or whatever, and she doesn't see in the gym that she's in. She doesn't see any directional understanding of how to get a blue belt. Right, like she doesn't see. Okay, like obviously it's not an attendance thing because she was training 2-3 times a day for a good amount of time when she could. There's no for her anyway, there's no understanding of what do I need to progress. And when she speaks to her coaches about it and says, what do I need to work on? The answer is just keep training. Which is for an overarching answer is fine. But for somebody that's looking for something a little bit more scripted, and this is kind of where I wanted to ask you your opinion is so I agree with you, right? Like essentially what you're saying, to me anyway, is like belts don't really mean as much as you think they mean in terms of acquiring the belt. What we should be focused on is acquiring the skill, and then, oh cool, you have a different color wrapped around your waist, congratulations. Like really what's important is the skill acquisition. Like there's a blue belt in my gym who's fucking phenomenal, right? But he's got a blue color wrapped around his waist, right? If you put a brown color wrapped around his waist, no one would bat an eyelid, right? But it's just because he doesn't. Do you know what I mean? He has a blue wrapped around his waist rather than a brown wrapped around his waist.
Exactly.
And essentially, like one of my coaches, Tommy, he's like, belts don't mean shit. Like stripes don't mean shit. And to an extent, like he's right. It's about.
I agree.
Because we look at let's take the outliers here of Kade Rotolo, Tyro Rotolo, right? Those kids were blue belts beating black belt world champions.
Yep.
Blue belts. Right, like obviously they're not fucking blue belts, right? The skill that they've got is unbelievable.
They're outliers, outliers in a group of outliers. Let's be honest, but
yeah,
I agree. Belts don't really mean shit because if you do come to get yourself in a position where you're rolling, and you are testing that, you're either up to the mark or you're not. You're gonna get beat, And the thing I was saying, it's beautiful for me to be able to say it in hindsight, right? But getting your black belt is an anticlimax. Because you realise it's not about, I suddenly get my black belt, right, I feel completely magically transformed into a new Zen-like mindset. No. You realise it's just about in the progression, the day-to-day grind, getting better. But belts generally don't mean shit, and that's why I've transitioned more towards no-gi because, it's just who's the better guy on the mat, really. And I just think, from my perspective, back to your missus sort of conversation, like I'm putting that post on, like everybody's different, right? If some, and it shouldn't be a dirty, thing to ask is what do I need to do to get my next belt? I encourage everybody to do that, What do I need to do to improve, coach? Is fucking hell, that should be something out your mouth every single week. But, and me as a coach, I would try to articulate something different for every person, Look, let's look at a 45-year-old guy who's got 3 kids, works a busy fucking job and stuff like that, and I'd be like, look, mate, to get your purple belt, you probably need to just not get, shore up your defenses, not get ripped by the young, hungry blue belts anymore. Shore up your defenses. You're not going to beat them. You're not going to physically dominate them, but if you can hold your own and just make it an even roll, boom, there you're the next level. Or if I'm looking at a young, hungry competitor, it's like, right, man, you need to be taking everybody out in the gym. You need to be getting fitter. You need to be hitting a lot of subs. You need to be developing a top attack and get, each answer is different for everybody, and just because I've got such a hard line stance with respect to belt promotions doesn't mean that, you know, you can't be a average Joe coming to my gym and getting belts, right? You've got to fucking smash everybody because it's not realistic, you know.
Yeah.
I've got plenty of guys who train for me who love a roll, you know, they like the rough and tumble of it. But they've got real lives. They're never going to be super in shape. So my, you know, criterion for promoting them guys, and it's more attitude based, you know, are they still, you know, jumping in the trenches with the boys, having a fight? Like I've got a guy he works night shift. He's got the hardest fucking life in the world. Works mega nights. He's knackered all the time. He's got 3 kids, and you know what? He's what, mid-40s, and he's still throwing down with all the young kids. He'll go for it, and he gets his ass kicked, and he loves it. You know what I mean? And that guy gets promoted because he's got the right attitude towards it, rather than what he could do is avoid everybody. You know, pick only his peer group. All right, I'm going to pick other guys who, you know, have got hard lives and they're older and stuff like that. And each person's different. So, you know, I'd encourage every one of my students, right, tell me exactly what I need to do, in your opinion, to get to purple belt. And I'd give them that, you know, and each person is different. Everyone's on a different path. That's the fundamental reason. That's why, you know, not saying any major franchise team names in jiu-jitsu, but, you know, having attendance card promotions mean jack shit, you know, because I could turn up to 20 classes and get a blue belt, and I'd be a superstar. I'd be mullering all the blue belts. But then Bob next to me, you know, he has more of a difficult time articulating the physical movements. He has more of a difficult time, you know, from a physical perspective, lasting the rolling rounds and stuff like that. That's not going to be relevant for him, you know. So strict, organized structure. I appreciate why some of these franchises might put them in place. You know, say do this, get a blue belt, because people see the progression, you know. But it's encouraging the wrong behavior from the very onset of their jiu-jitsu journey. You know, we have 100% lost people because we've got such a, you know, not a tough environment, but like it's definitely geared towards self-challenge, self-sacrifice, you know, putting yourself in difficult positions to improve. You know, I want you to leave the gym a much more happier, confident, and turned out person in your entire life. I don't want you to just be, you know, a cereal box blue belt who pays his fees, and I'm financially rewarded as a result of it. That's the only, you know, and that's the only reason you would do some of these things, is to get people through the door who are not typically suited to doing jiu-jitsu, get them to pay the dues, and they get a blue belt at the end of it. Great, well done. And then they get in a real life, and they're not confident in real life. They're still out of shape, and you know, and then they get in a real fight and they're fucked.
Yeah, I mean, see, it's really difficult to balance, right? Like, there's a couple of things here. The first is like, there is no curriculum in jiu-jitsu. It's almost impossible to have a curriculum. Like, do you know Kieran Brahan, T45
Yeah,
jiu-jitsu?
of course.
Yeah.
Kieran a lot.
Yeah, same. So what he does, and when we were discussing on the podcast, what he's got is basically a fundamentals course, right? And that fundamentals course is loosely an understanding of how to either pull guard correctly, sweep, pass, take the back, submit, or get a takedown, dominate top position, pass, take the back, submit, right? And he determines that to be his fundamentals course, and if you can roughly navigate that with you know, some modicum of expertise, you're roughly ready for a blue belt. Right now, you know, that's fine. I kind of like that idea, and I like the idea of having some form of curriculum. But then in the same vein, like, you can have, you know, I started heel hooking people at late white belt, like, and just because I fell in love with it, and I was like, God, this works, and I'm shit at everything else, but I seem to be able to understand this, right? Like, it's, you know, it's such a complex. Having an idea of a curriculum, having an idea of as you say, something very strict like an attendance card or whatever, it's jiu-jitsu is too complex for that, I think, right? But then I feel like there's room for something. Right, there's room for something like the Jiu-Jitsu University book that Salo Haberia put out. Like, that thing's like fucking 600 pages or something disgusting like that. But there's a really loose outline of what a white belt, a blue belt, a purple belt, a brown belt, and a black belt should be, right? And I keep that in my mind all the time, like all the time. And I remember turning from white belt to blue belt, and I was able to survive, right, against you know, I remember distinctly. I remember like there was a couple of purple belts at our gym, and I was rolling with them at white belt, and they weren't able to tap me that round. And I was like, oh, something's changed. Something's changed. Something's changed. Now, obviously, at blue belt, I get tapped with them because I'm going for them. I'm attacking them. I want to get something. And then by proxy, they catch me. But, you know, I think, I'm asking your opinion of this. Like where do you think, because you've got two sides, right? You've got the commercial guy, like you say, the guy at night shift. He's not going to be a world champion. Right? Like he's not going to be the next Gordon Ryan. He's not, because he doesn't have the time to do so. You know, he's got kids, he's got a job, he's got whatever. That's fine. But then you are going to have guys in your gym that will come in and they want to be a world champion. Right? They want to push themselves to become ADCC champion or, you know, Nogi Worlds or whatever it is. Like, how do you differentiate? Because the belt promotion to those guys is very different. You know?
Yeah.
It's tough, right?
Let's look at a real life example.
Sure.
Let's look at Ollie Bates. Okay.
Sure.
Ollie Bates, blue belt, when he came to me, and he expressed a desire to really tune up his no-gi, really wanted to be a competitor, you know. And he was with me probably 15 months as a blue belt. And, you know, and he was destroying multiple levels above him, belt-wise, in rolling. Competing, I've seen him tap probably 10 brown belts. I've seen him, you know, he's caught visiting black belts. I've seen him tap a black belt in comp at blue belt. He went 7 minutes with Ross Nickel, probably best UK no-gi competitor. And at the time, you know, this was probably one of the major reasons why I left combat base, right? Because the fundamental disagreement of time served, you know. But my point of view is, you know, the thing for Ollie there was I needed to get him a purple belt to unlock that next level of availability in competition.
Sure.
You know, rather than having to enter intermediate and he's just fucking destroying everybody because he can operate at a higher level. I needed to get him to that advanced, you know, because I would have stifled his ability to, you know, test himself. And because that was out of his appetite. I want to progress as fast as possible, get into the big fights, you know, I want to do sub only. So, you know, I'm really pushing the limits of his comfort all the time. You know, right, pick that guy for a fight. You know, let's get this guy. He's a brown belt. But then, so, you know, and it's important for me to match that with a promotion, irrespective of how quickly or how long he's been at a certain belt, which I completely disagree with, you know. If he's beating brown and black belts, fundamentally, he's already the next level. No two ways about it. So, you know, just because the IBJF says that it's going to be this much time is irrelevant. That's, you know, that's down there in my decision making. Whereas his ability to articulate movement on the mat, you know, submit great level opponents, submit from the top, submit from the bottom, hold his own, you know, his conduct with other people, his attitude, his desire to win, all of that, you know, so that's down to the individual. Whereas in my experience, like the hobbyist sort of guys, you know, they're less, you know what, it's interesting actually, because within hobbyist people, I see two chasms. I see people who are very motivated by the belts and other people that aren't. But fundamentally, it's for me to just, you know, keep them developing in themselves, you know, and it typically is more character development, you know, just enjoy, you know, look. And I always say to the guys, have your criteria for success determined for each round, you know, because jiu-jitsu is a very final sport, you know, it's like scoring a goal in football. So jiu-jitsu is, I submitted the guy or he submitted me. So people just have that as an overarching, you know, catch-all for success. I didn't submit nobody, so I had a poor round. Whereas, you know what, mate, you're 45 years old, you just roll with a 20-year-old heavyweight purple belt, you didn't get submitted, that's pretty fucking good, you know. So I always try to tell the guys, you know, judge your criteria based on who you're rolling. If you're rolling with a guy in your peer group, go for it. You need to be judging yourself by, did you win or not? Did you execute the moves that you wanted to do? So that's really more character development, I think.
That's where it gets really complex. Like, first of all, what I think is really important to say is the difficulty with the IBJJF is that they are not a governing body, right? They're a professional organization that look to make money, right? Like, that's what it is. Like, let's not get away from that. right? Like, to compete in an IBGF tournament, you need a registration, which is what, 90 quid, whatever it is. And then it's 90 quid per tournament to turn up. And then do you get paid at the end of it? No, you don't. Like, you're paying a lot of money to compete at these events, and they set ground rules and governing rules on belts and this and that and the next thing. And you can only compete at this event if you've got a gym that's got a second down black belt or whatever, and all this stuff. Like, at the end of the day, you don't need any of that to turn up to ADCC. You just go to the trials, pay your fees, win, and then you get a ticket, right? And the IBJJF have done incredibly well to dominate the space of jiu-jitsu and make it feel like they're the governing body, but they're not. There is no governing body in jiu-jitsu at the moment, and that's one of the problems. I think you go to like where I was training in karate or kickboxing, for instance, and there's an actual governing body.
Yeah.
And they say, and whether we agree with the rules or not, right? There are rules that are stated for absolutely every single club to abide by. And I think that for jiu-jitsu specifically, because of what you just said, there's a plethora of different scenarios that people are determined by, right? Like, there's competitive guys. There are people that want to be competitive but can't be. There are people that don't want to be competitive at all. There are just hobbyists. There are people that care about belts. There are people that don't care about belts. There are people that just want to train the gi, people that just want to train without the gi, people that want to do both. Like, there's so many scenarios there that I think having a catch-all rule for that is going to be really difficult. But what you've just discussed, I think, is really important, where, don't look at, like, it's so hard to coach though, of like, don't look at the belt, right? Just look at the next round, right? Like,
Yeah.
let's say me and you are about to go for a roll, right? Okay, so what's my objective? My objective is to not get heel hooked a million times, right? Let's see what happens. And let's say I get heel hooked 999,000 times. Well, that's okay. I didn't get heel hooked a million times. I've probably done okay. Whereas again, if it's somebody in my peer group and I'm working on passing, like, can I get the pass that I want? If I get the pass that I want, it's a good round. Right? Like, it's a good round. I've been able to execute the pass that I want in a fashion that I wanted to, right? Well, that's positive for me. And it's how it's, I think what's really difficult, and what your opinion on this is coaching people the long game.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll talk about this a lot. We as a society, more broadly, are encouraged towards instant gratification.
Yes.
It's this. I've got a phone and I can go on Instagram. I can Google whatever the fuck I want. I can look at a pair of tits. I can get music immediately. When I first went on the internet, I used to go on Agazarm. I used to have to, put a satellite and stuff like that. And one song would take 3 hours. And there was delayed gratification. Right? So I'm from a different era where things weren't immediate. Whereas, now you have a phone in your pocket that can give you pretty much everything you could ever want. Right? And this translates into jiu-jitsu, and this is why people are getting the mentality to be, well, I want a purple belt. That looks good. It'll feel good. I want that, rather than there's my goal of purple belt. Before that is rolling all these rounds, is learning all these moves. It's doing these competitions. It's having this attitude. People aren't seeing the wedge in the middle. They're just seeing the end point, because that's all that's shoved down your throat on Instagram.
Yeah, I agree. It's awful, really. Like, it really is. You go and you'll know, like, you'll see guys that go to tournament and they post all these pictures, right? And you've got a guy with 1,000 pictures of him with tournament medals, and you train with him in the gym and you get smoked, right? And it's like, that's weird. But he's a competitive blue belt or a purple belt or whatever. Like, I distinctly remember when I was given my blue belt, I had an overarching feeling of not deserving it, right? Like, I was like, I was like, shit, I'm not ready for this stuff. And then I remember having a word with myself on the tube home, and I was like, you've got to fucking step up now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's that. And I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's instant gratification. It's the same. Like, I find this a little bit with stripes, right? Like stripes, like, I understand for a lot of reasons are a useful tool, especially with kids, right? Like, with kids,
yeah, I agree.
You give a kid a stripe and they're like, oh my God, I'm progressing. Like, this is great. And that's fine. Like, that's fine. But I think when is it 16, you stop being a kid for
yeah,
yeah, fine. Yeah, like, when you're 16, fine, things can change. But there's there's so much more determined by things like Instagram, things like Twitter, things like where as you rightly say, society is pointed towards instant gratification and needing to be that thing, right? Like I've been a blue belt now for 2 years. I think I was a white belt for 2 years, 2.5 years, something like
That's
that.
good though, because that points to the fact that you're training in a legitimate school who is invested in your overall development, not interested in how many pounds you're willing to pay that coach. You know, and that's the two chasms we see. That coach is doing his job in making you a decent blue belt to the point where you've ascended to that purple belt level. You know, that's his job, and like I said, we are losing that as a sport, I think.
Do you think you would be able to break down loosely, obviously, but what do you think it takes to be a blue belt, purple belt, brown belt? Loosely.
Yeah, okay. Blue belt, you need to, very, very simply, I think you should have 2 good guard passes you can execute in a row on different style opponents. 2 sweeps, you can do the same. Have at least 1 or 2 go-to submissions. Purple belt, you should have the foundation of your overall game. You should have 3 or 4 different sweeps you can hit. You should be able to escape out of bad positions and recover and pass. Brown belt really for me is about you have pretty much an answer for everything everywhere. It's just not polished, and you're still getting caught. And you should really have a good grip of leg locks. And I think the difference for me for black belt is it's not changed so much from brown belt, but it's looking at noticing the patterns that match between position A and position B. Is like Danny Mitchell, MMA fighter who runs AVT. He did a seminar years ago, and he went, it was mount is guard. The principles of playing full guard, of getting on your hip, angling out, making for triangles. Well, that works in mount, and so it's really getting a broader view of the world, I think. But it's very difficult, like I said, because I look at everybody differently. But if you're trying to get a blue belt, you should just have 2 really go-to good moves from, let's say, the more profound positions, which is passing and sweeping. Purple belt, I'd expect you to be able to get to mount and finish, get to the back, finish, and escape. Brown belt, you should have everything from everywhere. And then black belt is just mastery of those. You can chain multiple things together. Like when I went from brown belt to black belt, and still very early in black belt, I was good at offensive leg locks. And then I went to Polaris for Kieran Davant, and he exposed a huge hole in my game because I've not really considered that other people was very, very good at leg locks as well. And he leg locked me convincingly. So I spent the next 18 months just letting people tear my feet off, and I've got pretty good at defense now.
Yeah, sure.
But, and it takes that. So, and I think, like I say, he's closing all the gaps in your game. He's getting to black belt, and then just realizing that there's still more to go.
Yeah, I like that. I saw Gordon talk about sort of white to purple belt, and his opinion is this, and I want to throw this against the wall and see where it goes. It's like from white to blue, he would coach his students to learn how to escape from pin positions. So side control, mount, back, whatever, right?
Yep.
From there, from blue belt to purple belt, it's about escaping submissions. So his opinion is when you get to purple belt, obviously, when you get to purple belt, you'll have some form of submission, you'll have some form of sweep or whatever. But he said the thing that he feels is most important, especially for competitive jiu-jitsu, is it's if you can go on the mat and be really, really confident that you're not going to be able to be held down and stalled out or submitted, he said then everything comes much easier, right? You're then able to go and you can be reckless in your attacks because you're well aware that you feel confident enough that you're not going to get subbed and not going to get trapped in certain positions. And I thought about that, and I'm like, that's pretty solid.
Good.
yeah, it's pretty solid for a competitive jiu-jitsu player, right? Because you think about Gary Tonin, he's probably the thesis behind that, right? Like holding that guy down is just ludicrously difficult, and then submitting that guy is even harder. Do you know what I mean?
I wholeheartedly agree with that. You know, I think when I look at the competitive guys we have, we do rounds, right? Okay, I've got saddle locked in with my grips, don't get submitted. You know, for the first few rounds, you're getting your feet torn off. But then you know what? It's interesting. After a couple of rounds, despite me having a fully locked in heel hook, the balance shift towards them escaping every time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, but again, it's a mindset that is not particularly prevalent. Is put yourself in a very, very shit position and lose loads of times. We all do guard versus passing rounds. We might do attacks versus escapes rounds and stuff like that. But putting yourself in a fully locked in submission, that's probably pretty extreme, because of the potential for you to get hurt. So, but that's one we do a lot, especially leg locks. For the guys who are wanting to compete, no gi sub only, it's right. You're in a locked in heel, go.
Yeah. Yeah. And how do you build? And this is the other thing, right? Is there's sort of a stereotype for white belts that are a bit reckless and slam things on, and there's blue belts that are also a little bit reckless and slam things on. Like, how do you coach competitors to not do that, right? Like, because if you are in a situation of sparring where you have a fully locked in heel hook inside or outside, and you say go, like, the tendency to just rip that as hard as you can and just obliterate somebody.
So I definitely, the lower experience level guys, I definitely say, you catch and release. Not so much catch and release, but you catch and give your opponent the opportunity. Catch, you're locked in, you're tight, you've caught the hip, you caught the knee. Give them the eye, let them make the decision then at that point. So, whereas when I get to more of the high level training, we are actively trying to apply it because we're both grown up enough to know whether we're caught or not. Interestingly, despite me teaching heel hooks from white belt, we've had no, touching wood, no knee injuries from heel hooks. The only knee injury we've had was a guy who was in lockdown and tried jumping forwards. That's it. And he dislocated his kneecap.
Oh, fuck.
Despite, you imagine how many rounds we've done in the gym for the years, and we've had nobody bust their knees up. So, and it's usually because people hurt themselves in the knees because they're not sure where the limits are. Well, if you test your limits and know how far you can go, and that's when you can translate that into competition. So definitely, like I said though, the less experienced guys, I tell them to just hold it and then work on at least retaining the position, because let's imagine you've got saddle. If your saddle's good enough, they're not going to escape the knee, they're not going to escape the hip line, especially not going to slip the heel. So they can play with that a little bit, and then you're working on your retention and your control skills while your opponent is learning where their limit is.
Yeah, it's perfect. Like, it's perfect. And I think obviously we've derailed slightly from the belt promotion, but there's something that you said about turning to your black belt and then just having sort of a wider view. There's almost a philosophical aspect to that, right? And that philosophical aspect is almost like you've come full circle. And at white belt, you look out at the jiu-jitsu sphere and you're like, oh, okay, it's like subs and passes and
macro versus micro.
Yeah. And then you go through the micro transitions as you go through the belts, and then you get to black belt, and then again you see it again, right? You see the overlay, but you see the overlay with, for you, 8 years under your belt, and you realize, quite figuratively, under your belt, and you look out and you're like, oh, okay, it's way more complex than I thought it was, but now I kind of understand it.
It's a really overused saying, because you see how much more you've got to learn and stuff like that, but it's just about closing the gaps, because I've got to black belt, and let's say in the gi, I played a lot of like De La Riva, sleeve and collar kind of stuff, arm bars and leg locks. No gi for sure, heavily on leg locks, whereas I'm working a lot on front headlock, a lot on wrestling now. You know what I mean? There's so much still to learn. So it's just definitely, and I think I'm getting really obsessed with it, is character creation. That that I see is more overarching my job, is developing people's characters through difficulty, through challenge, through learning circumstances. That's more my job now than just teaching guy move A, move B, and you get a purple belt.
So are you going to change the name to gripper therapy or?
Maybe if it means I can keep my gym open during a tier 4 situation because we're a health clinic, then yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah. So, I mean, how do you do that? Right. Like, because essentially that's nothing to do with the mechanical understanding of jiu-jitsu. Like, why are you obsessed with character building?
Because I see what it's done for me. I see what it's done for others. I've had guys who were really overweight, majorly depressed, have joined the gym, and 2 years later have lost a fuck ton of weight, supremely confident. They've got themselves a bird for the first time. You know what I mean? They've got a new job. I see what a powerful tool it can become. And what people struggle to realize, and everybody could transform their lives, but what the daunting aspect is self-development is at the other side of adversity. But a lot of people can't see. They think, fuck, I'm gonna have to do something really hard. I can't face that.
Yeah.
But going through that crucible, you're gonna come out and go, fuck yeah, man, I just did that. I've had a 120 kilo purple belt trying to beat the shit out of me, and I survived. An average guy on the street ain't gonna be able to do that. You know what's funny? Like, since I've done jiu-jitsu, I've not been in any fights, and it's not because I don't go out very much or things like that. It's because I carry myself with a level of confidence that dickheads in the street can sense. It's an intangible. They just don't fuck with that guy because they know. Like, I think I was in the shop the other night and there's a load of fucking kids like throwing stones around in the Asda car park. And I could see them eyeing my car up, and I thought, fucking here we go, get ready. And I just got out of the car and I looked at them, and they all walked off. It's a really difficult thing to try and quantify, but projecting that level of confidence, and I'm obsessed with seeing my guys develop their overall lives. You know what I mean? There's a kid who joined, considering he's been doing solo drilling throughout lockdown. He had mad anxiety. Okay. Could barely, he struggled to go to work. It really difficult. And he was overweight. He didn't really eat well. He's lost 2 stone in 3 months.
Jesus.
He's had a promotion at work. He can talk confidently. Literally, when he came in, he was like, can talk really quiet like this. And now, he's having a laugh with the lads. And I've seen that in 3 months. He's lost 2 stone of weight. He's had a promotion at work, and he's changing his life because he's realized that, I think the first class was really funny. We were doing some back escape drills. To the point, his anxiety was so bad, when the guy went here, he was fucking freaking out. You know what I mean? But he's done that, and he's done it, and he's done it, and he's done it, and he's, well, actually, I'm not dying. This is okay. And his anxiety has decreased, and it's changing that guy's life. And I think that is more of my job now, is whatever somebody needs is to give them that. I'm just not here to put a belt around your waist and show you move A, B. Is if I can get all of my guys confident and attacking every aspect of their life, and jiu-jitsu is the way to do that. I've really busted my arse in my career. I've gone from being an engineering student at uni, and I've worked really, really hard to become a plant manager of a big turnover manufacturing plant, in a very short space of time, because I've got such a dogged appetite for, progression, challenge, and difficulty. The average age for somebody who does my job, probably 49, 50, something like that. I'm 33 years old, because I don't take excuses, because I want to put myself in a challenging position. I understand that what I get out of that.
Where did that come from? Could you pinpoint where it came from?
Look, and I think one of my greatest regrets is I didn't learn this till quite late on. I think going to university, I still really didn't know my arse from my elbow, didn't know what I want to do with life, and I just kind of fell into training MMA with Rosie Sexton. She was, she really taught me about being a professional and training at Factory BJJ, and just really I don't know, I kind of got that at uni, I guess, and I kind of salvaged my degree because the first 2 years I was just fucking it off and training, and academically I've never been it's not natural to me, you know. I am always been better athletically, let's say, but I managed to scrape a decent 2-1 in my degree, you know, because I understood that it's just a certain level of hard work away. And I think, so there's that. I didn't really pick it up and realize it till later, at least university. But I look at like the way my late grandma, she was always very, you know, hard graft, grit, and things like that. She was always telling me these sort of things, and the thing is, I'd never had the opportunity or I've never experienced too much adversity to realize that, because you've got to connect the dots for yourself. You know, as much as you can be told that there's a door there, you've got to fundamentally open that door yourself. So it started late in my life, you know, mid-20s, before I realized that whatever I want in life is only X amount of hard work away.
Yeah, it's perfect. Like it is, and it's so, for people listening, like that haven't been through that, anything like that, right? Like, it doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu, right? Like that the idea that you just posed of, you know, success or progression being a set variable of adversity away fits to everything, right? Like it's not just jiu-jitsu, it's anything, right? Jiu-jitsu is merely a vehicle, right? You know,
Yeah.
powerful enough one, but just a vehicle. And it's just a vehicle to engineer adversity into your life if you allow it to, right? And you mentioned there that you had that a 45-year-old guy that works nights, and he could choose to just roll with his peer group, which would be, you know, a percentage of degree of an easier role than if you go and ask Ollie Bates for a role and yourself and the other guys in the gym that are working hard to be world champions. And, you know, there's an opportunity for adversity everywhere. And frankly, like, it sounds like uni was a fair amount of adversity for you, to be honest, because if you've thrown 2 years away training, sure, that's grand, because you've been training for 2 years, and that's fine. You'll have found adversity enough in the gym in 2 years, right? Rosie Sexton's no fucking joke. That woman's a demon, right? But then it's dawned on you that you've not wasted, but you've thrown away 2 years at uni and you haven't got the academic.
Well, you know, it's something I'm really reflecting on a lot at the moment. Like, my life has been immeasurably benefited by, you know, my commitment to MMA and jiu-jitsu while I was at uni, you know. But the 4 years I was in Manchester, you know, I only really went out the first year. After that, you know, that was it. I was in the gym. That's all I was interested in. Now, in hindsight, have I probably not wasted an opportunity, but, you know, there's probably a lot of memories I've missed out on with my friends that were there, my non-jiu-jitsu friends. Would I exchange it for the time and memories I've got with Adam at Factory and Rosie and doing MMA? No, I wouldn't. But, you know, I'm getting to the point now, I'm 33, I'm doing a lot of, like, reading on Stoicism and stuff like that. And I'm obsessed with the concept of Momento Mori, you know, remember you will die. You know, make the most of every opportunity that you've got. And, you know, I'm thinking backwards a lot, but I don't think I'd have changed anything. But, like, you know, Ollie Bates is still pretty young. I'm coaching. Look, enjoy yourself, but work hard when it's time to work hard, you know. Like I say, if I'd have done things differently, I'd have busted my chops in the gym, but I would have gone out a little bit more. But hey, hindsight's beautiful.
So talk to me about Stoicism and talk to me about Memento Mori. Memento Mori is something that I love Memento Mori. But go on, tell me, what are your thoughts on it?
You know, if you accept the worst possible outcome, you're free to make the best of the situation that you face. You know what I mean? The one that I really, really like is Marcus Aurelius as well. You know, remember, you could leave life right now. You know, think of that and let that drive your decision. Something like that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You know, we don't know what tomorrow holds. You know, coronavirus and shit this year. You know, we've all largely had chunks of our life taken away, and that's why when I read things like that, I can't believe some of the decision making people have. You know, I'd rather, you know, the one I always see, I'll get in shape before I do jiu-jitsu, so I'm not too tired during the roll. You know, just choose the fucking hard path. Really, you know, the hard or easy. How do you want your life? You know, I want to play life on hard, and then, you know, get to the end and I've given everything I've got. You know, I'm really fucking tired a lot of the time because I try to fill my life with so much. You know, I work a very, very busy professional job. You know, a plant manager for a big American business. that's a lot of my life. I drive for 12 hours a week to get to that job, you know. I coach 4 nights a week, you know, I train a lot. Then, you know, I've got my missus and I've got 2 young kids under 2.5. My life is really, really busy. So could I drop my career down, get something easier and earn less money? Right. Okay. Yeah, I could do that. Could I drop jiu-jitsu, stop competing? You know, as I put on that post, really thought about it, you know, am I getting too busy to do this now? And just spend time with my family, become a full-time, you know, well, not full-time dad, but you know, I mean, and there's a lot of stuff in there that's flying around, but it's almost accepting an easier path. Why can't I do more? You know, and don't get me wrong, my missus supports me immeasurably to do these things, and it's definitely a toll on her and the family. But really, foremost in my mind is we are all going to die. You know, do you really want fucking regret when you're 80 because you didn't do jack shit? You know, really, I can't, you know, I regret simple things, opportunities that I missed when I was a teenager, you know what I mean? So why would you not try and bust your chops now to make the absolute best of your life? You know, I'm tired all the time, but that's the least I can give to know that I'm trying to maximize everything I've got.
Yeah, and that's kind of the antithesis of the current climate of the social media instant gratification, right? It's like, it's just very difficult to describe. It's a very deep idea. Obviously, it's, you know, centuries old, but it's the understanding and the acceptance of death allows you to look at life in 2 ways. You can either see everything as superfluous and everything is almost nihilistic because it doesn't matter, right? You're going to die. Or you can see it the other way and see that every decision is incredibly meaningful and every situation can be incredibly meaningful because there's only going to be a set number of those situations before you pass away, right? And those opportunities give rise to, as you say, every single one of those opportunities can be seen as adversity because you only have that decision once, essentially, right? Like you may have, let's put it in real terms, right? Is you, rightfully so, you had a decision where you said, okay, I'm a father of 2 young children, I'm, you know, a partner to my wife, and I am also running a gym, my own competitive life, and a demanding professional job, right? Well, you have a plethora of decisions to make as to what your priorities are, right? And how that affects you now, how that affects you in 30 years, how that affects your kids' opinion of you, your wife's opinion of you, your friend's opinion of you. And, you know, you made the decision that was right for you at the time. And I think probably it's a positive one because, you know, the precedent that you set for your family is that you're somebody that's going to work hard, but also do the things that you love. Right.
Yeah.
And
look, you know, there's the concept of when you've had kids, you know, your life is entirely about them, and it is to a certain extent because my function as a man is to provide for my family.
Sure.
But that should not mean that I forego, you know, other things in my life that make me happy. Mm-hmm. You know, my kids are one of the singular reasons that, you know, get me up in the morning and motivate me. But the same token, you know, that should not mean I still don't want to compete in jiu-jitsu, don't want to go out and, you know, climb mountains and stuff like that. You know, it can just be an additional thing. You know what I mean? I can do everything. It's just how much time and effort and how tired I'm willing to be and stuff like that, I guess. You know, don't get me wrong, like I say, it's a massive amount of support from my missus. I wouldn't be able to do this without her. But
of course.
I just think, you know, it could be easy for me to say, yeah, you know what, man. And I thought all this stuff a lot last year. You know, I'm 33. Can I really continue competing? You know, I'm going to be so knackered a lot. My body's aching. I'm getting injured a lot more. Yeah, maybe okay. And then I think, like I said, Momento, Mori, I'm going to die. 33 is not that old yet. It's not like I'm 50. Mm-hmm. You know, you've got this much life. That much of it is an athletic window.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of the biggest regrets I have is I didn't knuckle down in any form of sport and take it seriously. Like, I'm not athletic in any way, shape, or form, really. Like, I was more attuned to being an academic than I was in an athlete. But I had a chance at kickboxing. Like, I put in enough graft that I got okay at kickboxing, and then in the same vein.
Sorry, dear, the sun in the window is really,
That's
really
fine.
bright.
That's fine. You've done so well to manage it for this long. Yeah, like I guess my biggest regret is I didn't take kickboxing seriously. I fought for a county title and got my jaw broken, and and that was kind of the end of that. And then jiu-jitsu is the same. Like, I got to jiu-jitsu at 25, I think, something like that. And by that point, my athletic prime is just beginning, right? And being a white belt world champion is very different to being a black belt world champion. Do you know what I mean? So, I think you're right to make the decision that you've made. I have a friend. I won't name names, but I have a friend who has the ability to be a black belt world champion, right? Like, he's a black belt now, and he has all of the skills in the world to be a world champion. And he's got, he's in his athletic prime at this moment. So super rare to be really good at what you do and in your athletic prime, right? And to see whether he puts the pieces of the puzzle together is going to be really interesting. But you're right. Like, you wake up in the morning at 33 and you realize, like, as you talk, hopefully not, but you could die next year. You know what I mean? Like, you could die at the end of 2021, right? And if at the end, if it is true that you get to go and there's a slideshow of your life, like, you want to be able to look at that with a level of pride.
I don't know. I guess I'm probably more towards atheist, maybe a little bit agnostic at the best.
Sure.
But fundamentally, the person who I'm going to have to stand up to at the end of my life is me.
Yeah.
I just regret is a very, very dark feeling. You know what I mean? And I would want nothing more than to just be, I've done my absolute best when I die. And it seems such a morbid thing about meditating on your own mortality, but it's such a freeing thing, and it makes every decision easy when you think, I'm going to die. I am going to die. So why would I not do this? Like, I really don't like the concept of, don't know, I'm not scared of flying, but skydiving. Okay. So I think skydiving's a fucking dumb idea. Why would you jump out of a perfectly working plane and, with a reasonable chance that you might die, that, the parachute might malfunction. But my missus bought me that, okay, for a Christmas present. And you know what? And I am definitely nervous about it. I am 100% nervous about this. So could I just say, no, I'm not going to do it, get your money back? No, fuck that. I'm going to do it, because irrespective of how many sleepless nights I might have, how much discomfort, the potential chance for me to die, imagine once I've gone through that, right, I've ticked another box now. You know what I mean? It's definitely bucket list kind of stuff, but I'm approaching that with the same sort of mentality I've done with everything. Is just choose the difficult path, and make the decisions that you think are going to overall benefit you. I'm going to have, let's say a month of not sleeping. The day's going to be absolutely horrendous while I'm sat in the back of a plane waiting to go up in the air. But then when I've got my feet back on the ground, I'm like, whoo, I feel great. So I don't know. And that, like I said, this is more in the last few years, I've got this sort of mentality, but this is, I'm trying to roll a lot of this like philosophical sort of teachings into the way I teach jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? It's just choose a difficult path and prioritize your own self-development above everything with respect to jiu-jitsu, not, ticking boxes on your attendance card and getting cheap belts.
Yeah, I mean, just to, I guess, to give you a bit more of an insight on jumping out of a plane. So my missus did it for her birthday. We were out in Portugal and she decided she was going to jump out of a plane. It was one of her bucket list things. We waited 6 hours before she was actually able to get in a plane. So if you're nervous, like be ready for that. Yeah, be ready for that. And she's an adrenaline junkie, right? Like definitely an adrenaline junkie. And she got in the plane, came out, and I was like, "How was it? Like, was it good?" She was like, "It was all right. It wasn't as good as you think it was." So yeah, and I'm like, "Wait, you jumped out of a fucking..." And the plane they used was basically tin, right? Like it wasn't even a plane. It was like a shell of a plane. The door didn't close properly, mate. Fuck that. You're not getting me in that, you know, not willingly anyway. And then yeah, she jumps out, and I was like, "How was it?" She was like, "It was all right." What she said was, "I wish I could do it without the guide."
Yeah, the tandem. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But that means I've got to do like 20 jumps or something. Get skills enough.
Yeah, fucking mental. But yeah, the philosophical side, like, yeah, I think it's important, right? Like, I think it's important. I think it's important that I feel like life is predominantly without philosophy at the moment, right? Like instant gratification, things like that, you know. And I don't want to harp on that too much, because there's a ton of people that don't subscribe to that notion, but there's also a ton of people that do subscribe to that notion. And I feel like the world is in a very, very, very peculiar place at the moment, because instant gratification is fashionable, right? And the meritocracy of Instagram is based on instant gratification, and it's very difficult to navigate that in a life that spans potentially 100 years at this point, right? 95 years. It's very, very difficult to live a life solely determined on instant gratification, you know. And when you balance that, like you say, with somebody that is predominantly atheist or agnostic, or, you know, whatever, and I'd like to maybe jump into that, but you know, there's a difficulty, I think, in balancing how you live life, right? Like, just as you say, accepting the hard path, actively seeking the hard path, and knowing that it will pay dividends, not even in the short course, but the long course, and the long course being your life and your children's life and your wife's life and everything else, right?
I think so. You know, my goals now are around providing very much, you know, through, and that's why I guess I've never gone full time jiu-jitsu. You know, I've had probably plenty of opportunities to say, right, I'm gonna, you know, just teach, make next to no money for a few years, and then try and build it up. Whereas, you know, my MO's always been develop my professional life as well as my jiu-jitsu life. You know what I mean? Because then I can become the best person I can be, or nearly as good as I could be in jiu-jitsu. But then I'm able to put a roof over my kids' head and my missus and look after us all and stuff like that. That's really, really important. You know, I don't think that it's not a binary decision, like high level jiu-jitsu and career. You could maybe do both. Don't get me wrong. Could I have got to, I'm far from high level, but could I have gone further by going full-time jiu-jitsu? Yes. But would that have put me in a position where I was comfortable to have kids as my, you know, as a result of financial stability? No, probably not. You know, because at the end of the day, you've got two little people that are relying on you.
Yep.
So it's a really interesting one. I just think, what was the point I wanted to make? I just feel like, I don't know. I guess bringing it back full circle, it's meditating on your own death is a very freeing aspect. I can't overstate that enough to anybody who might listen to this, you know, and let that drive your decision making. It's not a morbid aspect. It's just, it will improve your overall life, because why wouldn't you?
Yeah, and I think the only thing I'll add to that is it's very, there's one, it's meditating on your own death is not a comfortable experience, right? Like, it's really not. It is, of course it is, because you get to a position that it becomes apparent that you are going to die, right? And at 33, you're like, shit, like, there's a possibility that I could live 2 more of these 33 years, right? Like, I could end up at 99 potentially, and that's grand, but you also could not, you know?
Yeah, of course.
And I think it's the understanding. I don't know how to describe it without, you know, turning this into a 6-hour podcast, but it's when you realize that mortality is finite, it then has this very, very difficult ricochet effect, where it essentially breaks down some boundaries that were previously stable in your life. Of, there is a feeling of immortality. There is a feeling that, oh, it doesn't matter what happens in 40 years because it's so far away. But when you shatter that ideology with an understanding that death is becoming at any time, it makes things a lot more raw, Maybe that's a good way to say it.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good way of summing it up. Definitely.
And then, as you say, you can make your decisions based on you compete with the rawness, right? Like, is this decision going to be more painful than the idea of potential instant death? No. Okay, fine. Let's do that, right? If something is more painful than the idea of instant death, maybe let's have a second thought about that.
I don't know. I suppose when you get into like, right, shall I take heroin?
Yeah. Let's have a second thought. I guess the last thing I'll ask is about the agnostic, the atheist thing. Like, were you brought up in any religion? If you weren't, how did you get to the position you're in now?
So, my mum and dad were very open-minded with stuff. They didn't force anything on me. They didn't get me christened when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was 12, I chose to be christened.
Okay.
And I guess a bit misguided at the time because not so much peer pressure, but I looked at a lot of my friends and that seemed like the done thing, I'm not christened. At uni, I probably spent a couple of months exploring Christianity. And I think that in parallel with my expansion of my consciousness, let's say at university, about, what moving variables in my life, making my own decisions. And then I guess I just looked at, there's like, what is it? The difference between an atheist and a religious person is 1%. 99% of other religions are wrong, but the one you support is right. So we're only 1% apart. And I thought that was really interesting. It can't be right. And then I kind of thought, unfortunately, is the reason for religion a bit of a soft and comforting thought? It's a blanket, right? Because I'm going to die, and well, yeah, but there's this guy in the sky who's going to bring you into his house, and everything's going to be all right. So, I think if, no disrespect to anybody who is religious, but I think if I had been truly and profoundly believing of a religion of some description, I might not have pursued my life with the aggression and vigor that I have done. Because, well, why bother? Because then there's this afterlife where everything's gonna be cool. I'm gonna go and sit in God's house for the rest of my days. So, and I think it was probably more about me learning, understanding about a religion and some of the tenets within it, and then measuring that versus what I guess my moral compass is. And don't get me wrong, with the universe and the galaxy and the percentage of chance, is there a percentage chance that there's a all-seeing God? Yeah, of course there is, man. There's, I think there's a close to 100% certainty of aliens. The universe is that expansive. You'd be an idiot to not think that there is other life form. If we've been lucky enough to develop on this rock, then considering, I think, it's like, I think the best way I've heard it described is Earth is like one grain of sand in the universe on a beach. You know what I mean? That's how big it is. So, of course, there's going to be a lot of life out there. So, is there a chance that there's a powerful being in some description? Potentially. So, I'm definitely more towards atheism, and I think that's respective of my character of, let's say I am a little bit of a control freak. I like to have my hands on the levers of my life. Trust, just said, God will make the best of my life, and that's a pretty cool, freeing way to live your life, because you'll live quite carefree then, whereas I'm probably more towards the opposite now. Of I'm going to make the decisions and I'm going to change my future, with my own hands, sort of thing. And that does lend itself more towards atheism, but I guess probably I'm more agnostic just as a result of, and I guess it's a logical thought about chance.
Yeah, and I think I probably sit in a similar carriage to you. Like, I think there are times when I get a feeling that there's too much complexity for there not to be something. Like, I don't know what that something is. I don't know whether it is what we determine to be, some guy sat on a cloud that Yeah, like I feel like there's too much complexity sometimes to believe that we are alone in this vast and cold and dark universe, right? Like yourself, there's such an expansive mass that we have no idea what it contains. It would be silly to believe that we are the only ever life form, right? It's just I logically it just doesn't sit well with me to think that we are the only life form. But then, there was some thought from a guy called Thomas Aquinas, who was Jesus way back, and his idea was about movers, like the first mover. So the idea behind the first mover is, like, let's say we are here now, right? Well, what created us? Well, the idea that created us was God, right? Okay. Well, if we're depicting every single movement that led to God creating us, his question was, is God the first mover, or was there somebody that created God? Was there something before that? Right?
Yeah.
And that's a really interesting argument. And that, if we extrapolate that out to the universe, like, it's almost impossible that we are the only ones here. And I think that lends to your Memento Mori thing of, not only is it we will die, it's also an understanding of you're not the divine, right? Like, you are mortal
You're not
entirely.
special. We all want to feel special. We're told to feel special, but we're not.
No.
I guess, yeah, we're told, we're almost the architect of our own life story, which we are in effect, but it gives us an inaccurate sense of self-worth.
Yes.
And I know it's daft, right? And to pull this in, but you look at, like, let's pull ISIS in. You look at all the atrocities that they're doing and the shocking nature that people are like, oh my fucking God. The fact that they're chopping guys' heads on, stuff like that. Because we are, we're conditioned to not see that in Western world. But that's real, that's raw. This shit happens, And the only difference is that mobile phone footage has allowed that to go worldwide. But guess what? English people doing that in the Crusades fucking 1,000 years ago. You know what I mean? And I think the way our lives have been constructed is to take all the spiky elements out of it. Real difficult, raw stuff happened on a day-to-day basis. And I think definitely Western society is getting soft in that fashion, is that anything that's slightly discomforting, is we're going to remove it, we're going to take it away. And our mindsets is struggling as a result of it, I think.
Yeah, there's I always fuck this up. I've said this on another podcast and I always get it wrong, but there's something like in the Greek or the Roman times, there was a determination that society went through 7 phases. And one of the final phases before society just dissipates, crumbles, and there has to be some form of revolution was gluttony.
Okay.
And Jesus, if the society we live in now isn't gluttonous, I don't know what gluttony is. You know what I mean? Like, we're more comfortable than we've ever been. Like, you just mentioned, like, the house you're in is not even your own, and look at it, it's beautiful. You've got a selection of chairs, you've got plants, you've got a light source, you've got all a radiator behind you, you've got loads. And me the same. I'm sat on this chair, but there's 2 other chairs I could choose to sit from. Like, I could choose a chair. Do you know what I mean? Like, if that's not gluttonous, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think humans are meant to be this comfortable.
No.
And don't get me wrong, I don't think we should take it back to caveman or anything like that. But you look at, let's say, medieval times, things like that, is scarcity is a motivating factor. We don't have enough scarcity of anything. Everything is in abundance, and I just think, like I say, that's why we're losing the way and losing that crucible of adversity.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's difficult then, because the question then is, as you say, it was, oh, fuck it, okay, we'll strip everything back to caveman. Well, let's not do that, because then everyone's going to die. But I think there has to be and this is where, I hate to, the people that aren't jiu-jitsu people, like a lot of people that listen to this podcast, for instance, aren't jiu-jitsu people, but this is where there are riches in jiu-jitsu, is there is predetermined adversity, predetermined struggle, and predetermined scarcity. Scarcity in that if me and you roll, it's not going to be close. right? I'm going to get murdered, and that's okay. Like, I accept that going in, but it would take me 8 years, however long it would be, for it to be competitive. But it probably still wouldn't be, because you're still going to be, you know, it's not like you're a static point for the next 8 years while I go off and get better.
I don't know. I've had a pretty indulgent Christmas.
Me too, mate. Me too. but you know what I mean? Like, there's an understanding of scarcity, there's an understanding of hierarchy, and that is, without saying, it's almost it's imperative to the gym, it's imperative to the structure, it's imperative to the art. But going in and facing that adversity, understanding that scarcity, accepting it, and just keeping on going back is something that gives you, it bears fruit. Like, it really, really does bear fruit. And you can either look at it one of two ways, like the guy that you mentioned. You could go in and you can pick the hardest roles in the gym. You can go in and you can say, I want that guy, right? Or you can go in and you can be like, oh, I'll just take this day one white belt that knows absolutely nothing and I can give a pasting to, right? You know, there's a choice, there's autonomy, as you've mentioned, there's autonomy to it. And the abundance of stuff, we should probably set boundaries, right? Like, I think it's okay that people have houses and food and water, right? I think that's probably okay. I think that's probably okay. We should probably all agree that that's okay. But from then, I mean, it would be interesting to see a world that's slightly dialed back and what people look like in that world.
I think if you took the internet away, a lot of people would fold. Because your entire life is based upon referred gratification, I guess, by some dude putting a like on Instagram. Like Livy's dad's a builder, and he does jobs for people, and then I see these people that are like, oh, look at my fucking extension, wow, look, we've got this nice machine into it, and that's all they're doing in their life, is that they're putting a Facebook post, and I'll be blunt, I've probably been close to addicted to social media. I've grown up with the internet and stuff like that, and I'm really starting to withdraw away from it a lot at the minute. Don't get me wrong, I still need to utilize social media for development of my persona, the gym, advertisement and stuff, but I deleted the Facebook app. I still have to use Facebook because I've got a gym page. I deleted the LinkedIn app. I deleted all news apps and stuff like that. The only social media app I have on my phone at the moment is Instagram, because I see the pitfalls in that, because it's seductive in its nature, is that I put this, if I put something cool on, like, oh great, I got 160 likes on that belt rant, and shit like that, and it's meaningless because it doesn't fill your heart up. Like I said, ask yourself objectively, are you going to be happy at the end of your days? Oh, right, in my lifetime I got 36,000 likes on Instagram. Well, no, you're not. And it's about memory creation. That's why I'm doing a lot of outdoorsy stuff at the moment. Something I think I've missed out on in my 20s, is because when I do think back to, I spent my 33rd birthday on the side of a fucking mountain in Wales, Snowdon, in the most beautiful weather I've probably ever walked in. And I remember that, and I remember the adversity of going up a certain route the wrong way. I'm on a rock face. I've got to look up. I've got to climb my body, my height again, and then look behind me, and there's 200 meters of nothing. You know what I mean? That's adversity. But then afterwards, it's a story. You know what I mean? So, and I think if it'd be really interesting to see if the internet just disappeared overnight, what people would do. And I think it'd be a shock, but people that would move back to more real experience.
Well, what we determine to be real, anyway.
Yeah, maybe we're in the Matrix. We'll see.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. And I agree with you. Like, I think that, I don't want to harp on adversity too much, but social media addiction is real. Like, I have a vastly addictive personality, right? Like, my missus has to drag me away from things just so I can eat and shower and stupid shit like that, right? Like, if you left me to my own devices, let's say games, for instance, right? Like, if you left me on a game, you wouldn't see me for 3 days. I'd only surface, like, because I'd be starving, right? And it's, I'm the same as you. I've deleted Twitter off my phone, no Facebook on my phone, none of that stuff. I've only got Instagram on my phone. I've only got Instagram on my phone essentially for the podcast. Like, that's basically what it's for. But then, I find myself, I've got 5 minutes in a day, the dog's asleep, my missus is busy, there's fuck all on telly or whatever. And instead of going and reading a book, you'll find me scrolling through Instagram, because that's what the app does, right? It draws you in. It makes you want to click that button. It makes you want to see, did I get a like on that post? Or has somebody responded to my story? Or is this, is that, what's Lloyd chatting shit about belts again? And, like it's all there for you, right? And it's beautiful in the sense that somebody has understood psychology enough to be like, we can make an app that is utterly addictive. And
I wholeheartedly agree of the amazing job Facebook and Instagram have done.
mm-hmm.
And they've mechanized people's engagement via anger and envy, and quite visceral emotions. They've mechanized that, and then they've subsequently monetized it and made themselves billionaires. That is something to be lauded. I just think that people need to, and they're not bad things if you use them at arm's distance, right? They're fantastic tools, because you can keep up with your friends, you can see what they're doing, the marketing tools. I just think we need to be better educated, because still very, as a species, still very new to this level of information. We need to be better educated on how to not let it detrimentally affect your life. Like Adam at Factory BJJ used to tell me,
shout out to Adam Adstead.
Yeah, absolutely, man. A big brother of mine. I lived with Adam while I was at uni for a couple of years. A lot of my ethos and professionalism comes from Adam. But like he said, information diet, because look, fundamentally we're not too dissimilar to medieval people, right? And how many data points did a medieval person get per day? Not many. No. And it's something like several thousand were exposed to now, and your brain is constantly hit with pieces of information. It's, and you've got your phonological loop. I think it's the number of pieces of information you can process at once. And and my missus goes fucking spare with me, because I'll be, the kids will be like, rah, 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 the TV will be going on CBeebies. I'll be on my phone, on Instagram, up with the radio, and she'll say, right, can you go and get me this? And I won't fucking hear it, right? Because I've overloaded my phonological loop, because we're bombarded with information and shit, you know what I mean? And that's why, I'm now in my 30s, very much moving towards getting it exposed to the outdoors, stick my phone in my pocket, Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Put my phone in my pocket, get outside, go and climb up a beautiful hill, and the only exposure you have is, the serene, beautiful thing in front of you. Me and Adam went up in the Peak District the other day, and it was fucking crazy weather. It was like -5, -7 on the tops. Visibility, it was probably 5 meters in front of me. There was no visual reference. But on the same token, it was a really beautiful experience. It's the only thing that we were focusing on is navigating in the right direction. You know what I mean? And that is quite a nice experience, and especially for modern people, is actually decrease the number of stimulus you're exposed to, and actually your brain will feel better. Sensory deprivation tanks. Joe Rogan always goes on about, but like you go in there for an hour and a half, and your brain feels like it's had a massage, because you've had an absence of stimuli.
I agree. I completely agree. I think the data point thing is something that is really, really important to think about. Like, medieval people are only a couple of 100 years away, which is less than a blink of an eye in time's expansive nature. And you look at it and you think, fuck me, like there's a stat about how every day now there is more information uploaded to the internet than existed in the history of time before it. What? That doesn't make any sense. Like, how is that possible? Like, all the information of humanity previously is superseded by information uploaded in one day now.
It's beyond reckoning, really, isn't it? I don't see how, it's beyond human comprehension is now the level of data or the expanse we're speaking about.
Yeah. And I agree wholeheartedly that there is absolutely no way that a human can process that level of information. I don't think humans know how to process just Instagram, really, because you think about even Instagram, right? Like, okay, so you've got a timeline of stories, you've got an explore page with more pictures and videos than you can ever see ever. You can just scroll endlessly through that explore page. The stories, like somebody's always uploaded some form of story, so you can loop and loop and loop and loop and loop, and you're always looking for something. Right? You don't know what you're looking for, but you're looking for something, and you're never going to find that thing, and you're just going to keep scrolling. And that's just Instagram. You can then flip over to Twitter and do the same thing. You can see the hot pile of steaming mess that is Twitter. You can go to Facebook and you can see whatever you can see on
They're all
Facebook.
doing a weekly shop at Asda.
Right, exactly. You go from Gerald doing a weekly shop at Asda to, anti-vaccine, and you go to, anti-coronavirus and this conspiracy theories and that conspiracy theory. You just tail off into, I wonder whether people just forget who they are. They lose the sense of identity because there's far too much stimulus. There's far too much information. It's an overload of information, like you say. Like, I'm the same. Like, I try to keep the flat as quiet as possible, right? Like obviously we've got a dog, it's not that quiet, and then my missus watches TV, and my missus is half deaf, right? So the TV is always on disgustingly loud volume, but as much as possible, like, there's one stimulus, right? One. Because otherwise, as you say, like, my hearing's not that great from being battered in my eardrums as a kid, and it's not that great from getting smushed and wrestling and all this sort of stuff. So, if somebody asks me a question, I'm probably going to have to hear it twice. And that's one of the benefits of having really good headphones, is I get to actually hear what people are telling me. But, the stimulus is just, yeah. I don't know the answer. Like, I say all this stuff about, oh, we should reduce this, we should do our best to do this and this, but I don't really know the overarching answer. It's very difficult to.
Look, I think it should be treated genuinely as an addiction, because fundamentally what you're receiving stimulus, whether that's Instagram, okay, you're seeing people do stuff, you're getting a dopamine response, and you're fucking feeding that, and feeding that, and you're feeding that, and you're feeding that. And like saying, to the point, genuinely, I think I've got borderline addiction, because it's like, oh, right, you did 3 hours of Instagram today. It's like, fucking hell, in 24, that is a commitment. And some of it is trying to promote the business, but most of it is just mindless bullshit, and because my body is used to receiving that response, and should I be channeling that response into, engaging more with my family? Fucking 100%. That's something that I'm trying to work on, hence why I've changed the variables, deleted certain apps, and stuff like that. And I guess we need to be better equipped as a species on how to, deal with these sort of at least data-driven dopamine addictions. You know what I mean? Because we're great, all right. We've alcohol's been around for a long time. We're getting all right at dealing with that. We're encouraging not to take the piss. Drugs and stuff like that is the same. Sex. These are all things that give a reward, but
food as well, right?
Food, yeah, people get fat, but really social media and the internet usage is so young, is that I suppose it's not that it's not truly understood, but it's just not got that negative rep yet. It's okay. But the reason it's not got that negative rep yet is because the companies have got so good at monetizing it via advertisements and getting you to, perfect example, obviously, I've been sitting in the house, my shoes were fucked when I went for a walk the other day. I need new boots. My phone has been advertising me fucking walking boots. And mate, and the amount of times I've had in the last 4 days, the same £140 pair of walking boots in my shopping cart. Oh, I could get it on credit, I could buy it now, or I could buy it over 3. And I'm looking at them like, look, my boots are pretty fucked. Could I get another few walks out? Do I need it or do I want it? And it's how we're not really keyed up to dealing with that. But there's no appetite to, because it drives so much commerce. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Like, look, we're, the businesses that are holding these data points, the businesses that are now essentially the overarching.
Hang on 1 minute. Well, Gene and Stuart's just got an angry missed call.
But yeah, I mean, you know, essentially legislation is built to regulate organizations and things like that. But when you don't have regulation of something like Instagram or Facebook or whatever, then why would they stop? You know, like, why would they put out understanding and, you know, documentation and even just build what's the word I'm looking for, like restrictions into the apps, right? If you said, okay, you can only go on Instagram an hour a day, and that's in the app, you can't get around it, right? Like, you'd have to create another fucking profile and go that way, or they block your IP address or whatever they're going to do, right? Like, that is the antithesis of business. Because for Facebook and for Instagram, the more that you scroll, the more that you're likely to buy those £140 boots. And off that £140 boot share sale, they're going to get a share of that. They get advertising money. They get click money. They get this money, that money, the next money. So you sitting at home, scrolling, wondering, and having them in your cart for X amount of time, and you're going to get that email to say, oh, you had this in your cart, Lloyd, are you sure you don't want to buy it? Like, we can get it to you for 3 months. Oh, Lloyd, there's a better deal over here, we can get it to you. And then you're like, shit, I'm just going to fucking buy it, aren't I? And the next thing, you know, you've bought your £140 boots, and you're right. You say you could have either repaired your shoes, or they're still going to give you 3 or 4 walks, and you could have bought it after, but instead they fucked you, right? And now you've got the £140 boots, and they've got next day delivery because it was only £1 extra, but you fucking paid that £1 anyway. And here we are, right? Like, it makes money. People make money. We're in a position now where we are the commodity, but we don't get any share of the money, right? We're paying to be a commodity.
We are a set of data variables, and then which can be translated into a financial transaction. That's it. That's what humans are being reduced to.
Yeah.
I've got to wrap up, dude.
That's absolutely fine. I was going to say, it's probably a good place to close. So do you want to, just before you go, give some shout outs, tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, so the gym Instagram is at Gripper Jiu-Jitsu. Obviously, mine is at Yorkshire Gripper. Big thanks to Scramble Brand, supporting me for the last few years. At Excess Guard, who are a mouth guard company from Doncaster, really look after me. So, you never do anything good without the support of key people. But also, I guess, big shout out to Adam Madsen, Factory BJJ gang, brothers of mine. So if Adam's not been on yet, it'd be a good one for you to speak to.
All right, cool. I'll sort that out.
Nice one.
Look, it's been a pleasure. It's absolutely a pleasure. No problems at all. I will. I'll thank you for your time. Obviously, it was great speaking to you. It was great hearing all of your thoughts on various things. And yeah. Just have a great day.
I enjoyed it. It wasn't just how's training going.
I hate that shit. Like, one, there's no training going anyway, and two, like, this isn't a jiu-jitsu podcast. Like, I say this all the time. This isn't a jiu-jitsu podcast. It's a podcast where I want to have interesting conversations with interesting people. And your thoughts on jiu-jitsu can be, if you look through your Instagram, you'll see your thoughts on jiu-jitsu, right? Like, I'm more interested in who you are behind that, and thankfully we got a little bit of that. So nice. Thank you very much for that.
Thanks, mate. See you soon.
All right, take